a San Francisco startup with about 200 people, and I'm going to kind of tell you about what Patreon is like, why the problems we're solving are weird and hard, how we apply data science to them, and hopefully you walk away with a sense of like what it's like to actually do data science at a Series D 200-person startup. But just for my knowledge, I wanted to know who here is currently in the master's program. If you could just raise your hands, I know who you are. Cool. Wow, so awesome. And how many of you are practicing data science as like a professional right now somewhere else outside? Cool, a few people. How many of you are in academia or research? Anyone manage data scientists? I have respect for you. It's so hard. Cool. Anyone in like anything else or anything I missed? Engineering or adjacent fields? A couple people. Cool. Okay, awesome. And how many people know what Patreon is? Amazing. Wow. And how many people are patrons? Yes, you're my favorite people. Thank you for being a patron. Cool. So I'm going to dive into what Patreon is. Patreon's mission as a company is to fund the creative class. And by creative class, we mean all creators, categories, anyone who delivers content. And that's mostly digital content, but it also could be physical content. And why is this our mission? We're in a time when it's actually easier to be a creator and to get content to your fans than it ever has been before. You can just put up a YouTube video and millions of people can see it. But the systems for funding that are pretty broken. So YouTubers that get millions of views or artists who have millions of streams on Spotify are not getting paid for that value that they're giving to the world. So Patreon is trying to fix that. And one data point I'll share is that right now in the UK, they did a survey of teens, and 34% of teens want to be a YouTuber when they grow up. And then 18% want to be a blogger, and 16% want to be musicians. So Patreon is pretty excited to make it possible when those kids grow up for them to actually graduate college and be like, okay, I could be a lawyer, I could be a data scientist, I could be a creator, I could be a YouTuber. That's like a feasible, real job for me to have. That's kind of our big long-term vision. So here's how it works. This is a creator named Fran Menendez. She's a Chilean illustrator. She's one of my favorite illustrators ever, and I'm a huge fangirl. She has a YouTube channel with about 228,000 subscribers, where she shares videos of her behind-the-scenes artwork and how she's a freelancer and talks about art tools, and it's great. She also has an Instagram where she posts these like adorable little comics about what it's like to be an illustrator and talks about her book that she made and little things like that, and her fans love it. They say that she's super inspirational. Her fans are both illustrators who are learning to be illustrators and also just people that like looking at her drawings. So she gives a lot of awesome stuff out into the world. And Fran can go and make a Patreon page, which she did about 3 years ago. Went to patreon.com and signed up and said, hey, fans, come pay me directly on Patreon. Come support my work. And in exchange for your payment monthly, I'm going to give you cool stuff behind the scenes. So for $1 a month, you get access to her podcast newsletter. If you give her $10 a month, she does a live stream and you can actually draw with her. Super cool. So as a patron, you show up, as a fan, you show up, you see these payment options, then you go into a pledge flow. This is like the basic product. You pay. Once you pay, you have access to all this cool stuff, like a sketchbook tour and early videos and this whole world of benefits that you as a fan have. Now, Fran only has about 2,000 patrons, but she has 228,000 YouTube subscribers. So the idea is not that everyone that loves your work has to pay you monthly. Like, that's not reasonable. But your biggest, most dedicated fans, if you can get enough of them to pay you, you could actually make a living as an artist. And Fran makes $75,000 a year on Patreon, which is like not everything. You can't live in the Bay Area with that, probably. But it's something. It's a meaningful income. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fund the creative class. We are started by these two guys named Sam and Jack. Jack is a creator on YouTube. He has millions and millions of views. And he was really tired of putting his logo on a hat and selling that at his shows to get paid. He was like, wait, I make this art stuff. Can I just get paid for the art that I'm making? So he teamed up with his college roommate, and they made patreon.com. Jack talks a lot about the system. If you are into Jack or into Patreon, you should watch his TED Talk about how the internet is like the system that can take art and turn it into money. It's like a machine. But right now, that machine is really broken because of ad monetization. And there are all these cool ideas of how to make this machine better. So right now, you can start to pay Twitch streamers on Twitch. You can like pay them $1 and tip them $1. YouTube launched channel memberships where you can pay creators directly. People are starting to pay for music again, which is great after that whole kind of 90s era of not really paying for anything. So it's an exciting time to be trying to make this machine better. And it's working. There are 125,000 creators on Patreon. 3 million paying patrons, and later this year we're going to cross $1 billion paid to creators, which is I'm super stoked about. On the company side, before we get into the data science, just for context, we've raised $165 million in funding, so we're a Series D company, and we have about 200 folks working on this problem together, and the data science team is 6 of us, 6 strong data scientists trying to help the rest of the company. So that's who we are. We are funding the creative class. So how do I come in? Hi, I'm Mara. I run the data science team at Patreon. A little bit about me. I have a degree in applied mathematics. There's me doing a proof back in undergrad, super fun. I got really into math and music, so I got really interested in like John Cage. What is he doing? It's so weird. He's using weird notation in order to convey to musicians that they should be playing in a way that's totally outside of Western music notation. Like, what's happening there? Got really into math and music and how they come together. I worked for a while on this research project called Music 21 out of MIT, which is a really cool Python toolkit for musicology. So you can write a Python function that says, how many D minor chords are there in the Beatles repertoire? And you can get a result and kind of analyze that. Super cool. And then I did my research on optical music recognition, which is taking an image of a musical score and turning it into a digital score and writing an algorithm to try to make that more accurate. So I was really into this math and music thing, and then went totally away from that, worked at Google. Google's great. If you ever get a chance to work there, check it out. I worked there on a problem called traffic pumping, which is an abuse vector on Google Voice. So if you provide free calling to people, turns out they will abuse it and take a lot of money. So I wrote rules and algorithms to try to identify spammy callers. I got to hug an android, had a really cool team, got to see Alan Eustace talk about his space jump. It was really great. Then I came to Patreon, where I joined as the second data scientist about 4 years ago. And I've gotten to do amazing things, build the team there, and got to meet Fran, which is pretty cool. So this creator I talked about, got to thank her for her art that she has given to me and talk to her about Patreon. So that's my story, how I got to Patreon. Let's dive into what data science looks like at Patreon. So as I mentioned, our mission is to fund the creative class, and the main way we're doing that is building a membership product that allows creators to have the tools they need to acquire fans, turn them into patrons, and then retain them and reward them and deliver benefits and all that stuff. So we're really focused on this SaaS product. We sell it to creators for a portion of their earnings, and then they have all the tools that they need to make membership work for them. We have a few key metrics that we care about as a company, and this is important, obviously, because data science kind of ladders up to this. The first is total membership volume. That's just like how much money are we sending to creators. This is the $1 billion that we'll cross this year. The second is $1,000 creators, the number of creators who process $1,000 or more in a given month. Patreon wants to be a meaningful source of income for creators, and so we've kind of set this benchmark as a good place for us to shoot for. If we had millions and millions of creators earning $12 a month, it's not really funding the creative class. And if like only Taylor Swift and Chance the Rapper were on Patreon, and they each earn like $10 million a month, that's also not really funding the creative class. So we've kind of set this threshold to help us track against that. And then the third is net TMV retention. This is like a very common SaaS metric if you studied like Slack's S1 or look at SaaS companies and what they do. And this is just the growth in earnings from creators who were on Patreon a year ago. So we, as addition to acquiring new creators, we want to help existing creators grow their earnings as well. Okay, data science Patreon, what do we do? Our mission is to support our users, team, and community to produce data-driven research and resources that improve the business, the product, and internal decision-making and processes. Recently, we changed this to partner with. There's a pretty big difference in framing if you tell data scientists that they are going to support people versus they're going to partner with them. So this is really important to me as a data science manager, is that data science has an equal seat at the table. They're sitting next to a PM and working through a problem, or they're sitting next to a finance leader and working through a problem. So we think of ourselves as a partnership team. In the long term, we have a few things in our vision. One is improve internal decision making. It should be really easy to access data at Patreon and get the information you need. The second is powering Patreon.com with world-class data products. So what if we produced a churn model where we expose that to Patreon.com and a creator could know, okay, of my 2,000 patrons, these 15 are the most likely to delete their pledge next month. Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe I could reach out to them. Maybe I could do something proactive there. We also create internal resources that improve knowledge and automate processes and democratize data. And then we want to also build a visible and high-performing team. Data science today, on our team, we have a ton of diversity in our backgrounds. We have specialties across neuroscience and math, fraud, risk. We love traveling. We love diversity, inclusion, and stats. We have a really broad team with very different backgrounds. We have 2 folks with master's degrees, someone with a physics PhD, a few people that don't have advanced degrees and have taught themselves data science. So it's really fun because we can come at these problems with very, very different angles. Here are the tools that we're using. This should be pretty familiar to you, especially if you're in the master's program. We use Databricks, which is kind of like a beefed up Jupyter notebook. Allows us to have SQL and Python and R in the same place. We use Python. We're not opposed to R, but our background is Python, so mostly Python. A little bit of DynamoDB. We have a big Redshift analytics warehouse where we do all of our analysis out of. We use Amplitude, which is a third-party tool for user behavior analytics, so like who's clicking on what button,